Well, Fran, I want to dive right into this because there's so much to talk about. You became president of SAG-AFTRA last year, a pretty critical time for Hollywood, right? COVID-19 was still an issue. Scarlett Johansson had just sued Disney, citing breach of contract over the release of Black Widow on Disney Plus. What was that time like for you entering in during that environment?
It is an interesting time. It was and remains so. I think that my biggest actual challenge was trying to unite a dysfunctional union. I was determined, if I got elected, to not be partisan, party blind, I call it, and really just listen to everybody's ideas and grievances. If it makes sense to me, as with everything, I'll go to the mat for you. I don't like marginalizing anyone or making anyone feel less important, even if they are, for whatever reason, more of a minority opinion. And with regards to Scarlett Johansson, I was shortly thereafter negotiating a movie deal. And we handled the negotiations completely different in the event that the movie would go straight to streaming. And they kept postponing the theater release because of COVID. And ultimately, they decided to just go straight to streaming on Amazon. And so, you know, I recently got a nice big chunky check buyout.
and you know, I want to pick up on that point because, you know, streaming has really upended the industry. And how are you talking about those contracts? Like you were saying, redoing all those contracts to account for streaming?
Yeah, you know, we just had a very successful negotiation with Netflix. And then the AMPTP wanted to work on a fragment of the theatrical negotiations that we're about to go into with them in 2023. I'm organizing my negotiating committee right now for all of the other aspects of that negotiation. We began discussing the Netflix negotiation. The union was talking about, for me, what sounded like incremental alterations to an existing contract. And I saw a convergence of opportunities that would probably not come along for a very long time that needed to be leveraged with a great deal of strength and conviction right now, or forever be chasing after a different kind of a contract that's always just outside of our grasp. We really used our legislation that we had in the state of California during the negotiations. We had a lot of high-profile people meeting with our California representatives who were instrumental in pushing forward the particular bill called the Law Act, Let Actors Work. And I myself went on one of the hottest days out to Glendale to meet as well. We were very lucky that they heard us. They understood that we were the underdogs in this equation. They felt the truth of the matter is that when an entire industry changes and the rules of the game change on behalf of the employer, changes are going to have to trickle down to the employee as well. You can't have it both ways.
I want to pick up on that point too, because, you know, we know about all the big players in Hollywood, right? Like we were just talking about Scarlett Johansson. They're already making millions, but the reality is that most of your members, they're not A-list. They don't get the big paychecks from Disney. They're part-time, they're stand-ins. Can you give us some perspective
Well, and
on
also,
that?
yes, of course, it's all about the journeyman actor. All of these negotiations, because people like Tom Hanks, you know, they're not really impacted by this stuff. They make their own deals. And even people like Scarlett Johansson are given allowances to do other jobs if they want her. you'll see a lot of very famous actors that appear on multiple shows. And they're given that allowance because they're promotable and they get an audience, and the producers give them that privilege. So it's always kind of the journeyman actor, the middle class, that always is getting squeezed. And that's really why unions exist, to protect and defend their rights, because employers understand that they desperately want to work. We need to always honor and respect them with a very fair and equitable arrangement.
The Nanny film reboot, yes or no? You in or you out?
It's in the talking stage. I would definitely be in. And, we'll see what happens. There's a Broadway musical in the pipeline. And so, it's the gift that keeps on giving. And for that, I'm very grateful. We have an N is for the Nanny book at Cancer Schmancer for all the fans. 100% of the proceeds goes to Cancer Schmancer. And we have new fans now from HBO Max that are children, tweens, and teens who weren't even alive when we were shooting it.
That's amazing. Definitely a new generation enjoying that show. Fran Drescher, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Be well.